Hello and welcome to part 5 of the Gen Z Nostalgia Iceberg finale. This video has been a long time coming, so I don't want to waste your time. Let's just get right into it. Again, this is part 5 of a series, so if you haven't seen part 1 through 4, you'd probably be better off watching those before this one. But hey, if you just want to start with part 5, I respect it. Jumpstart. Jumpstart was a series of educational computer games for a variety of different age groups. It was created in 1994, and they continued to make games for different age groups for years. Eventually, the games became third-person interactive 3D experiences, which then led to Jumpstart 3D Virtual World in 2009. Surprisingly enough, you can still play Jumpstart 3D to this day. I personally grew up with Jumpstart, originally with one of the kindergarten games for my little brother. I always thought it was cute and fun, but at the end of the game there was an advertisement for Jumpstart 3D, and it looked mind-blowing. Eventually, I ended up playing Jumpstart 3D, and I loved it. I don't remember too much of it, but I do know it was really cool. Trash Pack. The Trash Pack was a series of toys that released in 2011. It was essentially anthropomorphic garbage items, and it was a ton of fun. It really appealed to that gross toy trend of years past, and the marketing was incredible. Every Trash Pack commercial made you really want the toys. I can say this from experience. The Trashies were essentially just squishy little rubber toys on the surface, but had a variety of different playsets, vehicles, and even the containers that they came in were part of the toy. They came in these brightly colored trash cans that would pop open when pressure was put on them, and they had a very satisfying little pop sound. The little characters were called Trashies. Now, some trashy designs were genuinely really cool. Eventually, it started to heavily deviate from its garbage theme, but the designs were still interesting. They were essentially like the cool boy versions of Squinkies, which if you remember either of these, you're a real one. Bing and Bong. Bing and Bong Tiny Plants was a CGI animated TV show that was just the best. This English show featured two little aliens named Bing and Bong, and they visited a bunch of different planets and solved problems that the local inhabitants were facing. The show had a theme song, right? And it just went way too hard. And honestly, I think it still holds up to this day. I remember belting that song at the top of my lungs as a little kid. It just went that hard. The show was incredibly cute, and I remember it being very satisfying to look at. It wasn't very popular in the USA, but it was pretty popular in the United Kingdom. Many people forgot about the show, but hopefully seeing it here reminds them of it. If you haven't seen the show in a while, I recommend you check it out. There are a bunch of episodes on YouTube. It's a great watch. Dr. Dreadful. Dr. Dreadful was a line of candy creation toys where you'd essentially use a creepy looking device to create spooky themed candy. The first of these toys released in 1994 and continued to be made throughout the 2000s. The toys had some awesome commercials, which are still really fun to watch in my opinion. I personally grew up with these toys, and I gotta be honest, they didn't taste that great.
Eat them, Ray. Sour.
Liar!
But that didn't matter. It was the fun of making your own candy that was the main appeal, and the spooky theme was just perfect. Themed restaurants. Themed restaurants were very popular back in the late 90s and early 2000s. Think Rainforest Cafe, the Jekyll and Hyde Club, or even a themed McDonald's. There were so many cool themed restaurants back in the day, but the majority have closed down. My favorite was Mars 2112, a themed restaurant based on the experience of visiting Mars in the year 2112. The restaurant was full of aliens and cool themed food. One of the aliens you may be familiar with. Another insanely cool one was the Jekyll and Hyde Club. This gothic 1930s themed restaurant was full of skeletons and animatronics on the walls, while actors roamed around and interacted with guests. Unfortunately, both of these restaurants have closed down and only live on in our memories. And this YouTube channel, basically. If you want to learn more about Jekyll and Hyde, I've actually got a great video covering it, and in that video, I visit the place with the one and only Paige Neiman. Yeah, like the Ariana Grande lookalike. That one. So, whether or not you believe me, check it out. It's a good video, it's a good watch. Nina and Star. Nina and Star, otherwise known as the Goodnight Show, was a nighttime themed block that would play to help kids go to sleep. It featured a woman named Nina and a little star puppet. This would air on the channel Sprout, which alone should bring back a ton of memories. The Goodnight Show was really cute, and I personally loved it as a little kid. While researching for this video, I learned some things that kind of surprised me about this show. The block aired from 2005 all the way until 2017, which is surprising. But even more than that, I learned that the actress that played Nina was fired from the show because Sprout learned that she'd featured on inappropriate PSA parodies around teenage pregnancy on the website technicalvirgin.com. This felt very unfair to tons of people, and honestly, I agree. Still a really adorable show, tons of childhood memories. Wonder Pets. Wonder Pets was a children's cartoon that aired on Nick Jr. back in 2006. The style of the show was very unique and used actual images of animals edited to be all cute and cartoony. The show was adorable and beloved by many children. There were toys and video games along that too. The show really was adorable, and it was the leading cause of children eating celery in the 2000s. Smiley Sings. Smiley Sings refers to a trend of videos with a little smiley face in Microsoft Paint singing different songs. This was achieved by essentially just using the transform tool and dragging the mouse up and down to the lyrics of the song to make it look like the face was singing. The most famous of these being the Smiley singing Green Day's hit song Boulevard of Broken Dreams. I don't mean to get all cheesy or anything, but I really love this video. It's just so pure and innocent and reminds me of better times on YouTube. Back before the controversy, the exploitation, the soulless crash grab YouTubers, Elsagate, the drama, just good old videos and people having fun. I love it. Skellington's Revenge. Skellington's Revenge is one of the most iconic and well-made YouTube poops ever. The video is a play on The Nightmare Before Christmas, only this time, Jack becomes so obsessed with taking over Christmas that he summons a Bugs Bunny demon to aid him. This all happens to affect the denizens of Bikini Bottom, alongside some other characters like the cast of TF2, Fluttershy, Ed, and Eddie, and more. It all culminates in an incredibly well done battle, which is genuinely really cool. And honestly, it gave me chills when I watched it as a kid when I was like 9 years old. The video is an actual cinematic masterpiece, and I recommend it if you haven't already seen it. All the humor is just so 2013, but it kinda holds up. Angry Kid. Angry Kid was a series of shorts created by Aardman Animation, the same people behind Wallace and Gromit. They focused around this snotty little British kid who had a human body but a claymation face. The series was uploaded on YouTube back in 2008 and continued to be uploaded for years. This feels like one of those things that would just be at the back of your mind, only being awakened by seeing it years later. And in all honesty, I find Angry Kid to be a bit creepy. It's a strange little show, but I definitely see the charm. Noodle Kidoodle. Noodle Kidoodle was a chain of stores in the United States that was around from 1993 to 2000. This is a similar concept to Zany Brainy from earlier in the Iceberg. The store sold educational toys and books, and was beloved by children at the time. Many people vaguely remember the little rainbow-haired nerd character, and I'm sure seeing him in this Iceberg will bring back many memories. Spitting Image. Spitting Image is a puppet-based political satire show that uses these very uncanny and really lifelike puppets, portraying politicians and celebrities. The show always covers topical things going on in the world and has been running from 1984 to now. You might recognize their puppets of Trump, Biden, and Greta Thunberg. Bunchy the Green Llama. Bunchy the Green Llama is an iconic gif of this green character jumping around on loop. This thing is so classic and I genuinely love it. Lots of people were actually really creeped out by it, but I always thought it was just hilarious. I remember this classic Try Not to Laugh video that featured Bunchy with the Thomas the Tank theme in the background, and it was comedy genius. Tax Doctor commercial. This entry is referring to a commercial aired by a company called Tax Doctor that specializes in helping people deal with their taxes so they don't have to have trouble with the IRS. Now this commercial would not be memorable if not for the little character. This character is charming yet unnerving at the same time, and his animation is very amateur and it just screams mid-2000s. There's also a Spanish version of the Tax Doctor ad and a 2D one. There's something almost uncanny about these commercials. They feel almost like they're advertising a service that isn't really legal, and it turns out it might not be. Check out YouTuber Sunflower's video on the subject. They'll explain more. Bob takes over YouTube. Back when YouTube started to forcefully introduce Google Plus onto YouTube, a rebellion of sorts took place on YouTube comments. This is Bob. He's made of just a bunch of different forms of text. There was a copy pasta using Bob and his tank which read, "Bob is building an army. This tank and Bob are against Google Plus. Copy and paste this all over YouTube if you are with us." And I remember commenting this on YouTube back in the day, and I will forever be a part of Bob's army. Maybe Bob should come back and fight against Elsagate. Not a bad idea. Smile Butterfly. This entry speaks for itself. The song Butterfly by Smile.dk was an incredibly popular song in the early 2000s, but it's also iconic for being a sound effect used by cheap knockoff toys. They would always use a super compressed loop of the chorus. The song is unforgettable due to how many things it was used in, and it always brings me back, especially if I hear it at a party or something like that. Leo Kim Video. Leo Kim Video is a YouTube channel that covers a wide variety of things. But back when it was most popular in the early 2010s, it was mostly a channel that featured a wide variety of toy reviews, and toy destructions, and also bugs, and stuff like that. Look, I say this with love, but this channel is weird as hell, but I love it for that. You see, Leo, the owner of the channel, is an Australian man who encounters a lot of different bugs, mostly poisonous spiders. A lot of the videos on this channel feature him capturing and encountering these critters, a lot of them having millions of views. Leo Kim Video also features a lot of ghost sighting videos, and this one video of a Woody doll moving in its box, which honestly convinced me as a kid that this doll was alive. I He also featured his 2 kids in the video, who would usually butt heads, leading to very entertaining conflict. Leo's first video is this very bizarre short film named Mr. Potato Head: Adventures with Bluebell, which is something that I would repeatedly try to watch and comprehend as a kid since it had a great thumbnail, but I never really got it. This channel also has a heavy emphasis on Thomas the Tank Engine, which appeals to that entire niche. Looking back on this channel is incredibly nostalgic for me. I used to watch the hell out of his videos, and my favorite growing up were the Minion Darkside videos, the Trash Bag videos, and of course, the Flicky Chicken video. Creepy PSAs. Back in the 2000s, kids ended up watching a lot of very disturbing public service announcements. Many of these are burned into our collective memories, such as the woman slipping with the pot of oil, the photograph PSA, and that classic creepy one about how children see their parents when they're drunk. These PSAs were pretty creepy back in the day, but are now looked back on fondly by those who grew up with them. I remember revisiting a lot of them while creating the Childhood Trauma Iceberg videos, and they definitely sent me back. Chicken Invaders. Chicken Invaders is an ongoing series of video games that stems all the way back to 1999. Chicken Invaders is a shoot 'em up, very similar to something like Galaga, only instead of aliens, you shoot chickens. The game is bizarre to say the least, but has a really undeniable charm to it. Chicken Invaders is still getting sequels to this day, and its most recent one is free on Steam. This game genuinely feels like such a fever dream. I remember my dad showing it to me way back when I was like 2 or 3 years old, which made seeing it over 15 years later feel crazy. The Abyss. Going forward from here, many of these entries will be more obscure, and most likely only live in the deep recesses of your mind. McWorld. McWorld is a McDonald's-based MMO that, like many others of its time, ran on Flash. You could create your own character and play minigames within the world. Something that was actually very special about McWorld is that you could actually get codes in a real-life Happy Meal that you could then put into the game and receive awards. The game was shut down in 2014, but lived a good life while it was still around. Wii Me. Wii Me is a very classic YouTube video about 2 little boys playing on their Wii. They end up deciding to make a Mii of the little one, which eventually ends up looking just like him. The Mii ends up essentially becoming a voodoo doll of the boy, Griffin. The bigger kid plays around with his Mii, and the actual boy does everything that the Mii does, while his brother is oblivious. He eventually ends up deleting the Mii, which actually deletes the boy in real life. The bigger kid is still oblivious and just decides to play Guitar Hero. The video is so classic, and before making this video I'd completely forgot about it, but I'm sure I'd seen this back in the day. I shared the sentiment earlier in the video, but I adore videos like this. They're just genuine and made for fun. The old digital camera and the primitive green screen just make me feel at peace and at home. SpongeBob Sick Pants. SpongeBob Sick Pants is a video created by animator Chris O'Neill, who you might know nowadays as the host of Oni Plays. SpongeBob Sick Pants is the spiritual successor to one of his original videos, The Sixins, a Simpsons parody, obviously. SpongeBob Sick Pants is a very interesting animation to say the least. It's very bizarre and violent, and the point is to be shock humor. Squidward red mists himself, they murder some fish, there's a lot of puke, Sandy's on drugs, they find a boy's corpse. It's just an insane video. Chris O'Neill now thinks the video is terrible, but I personally think it kinda has its charm. Definitely a traumatic nostalgic memory for a lot of people. Hallo aus Berlin. Hallo aus Berlin was a German CGI miniseries designed to teach young children the language. The video was pretty popular when it was uploaded to YouTube, with many people finding the animation really funny and charming while enjoying the music. The Barney Bunch. The Barney Bunch is a bizarre series of YouTube videos featuring Barney with a bunch of other characters from children's media. The characters are all voiced with text-to-speech and get into a bunch of different situations. It's weird, but, you know, it definitely had its audience. Speakonia. Speakonia was a software that was essentially just a text-to-speech generation tool, made to assist people who are visually impaired. You most likely recognize these voices since they were used all over the internet, in a variety of different uses. Some find these voices kind of unnerving, and I kinda get that, but I still love them and I find them very nostalgic. Skippy Shorts. Skippy Shorts was a YouTube channel that featured short videos featuring this funny little puppet named Skippy. The channel was never the most popular, but it definitely had its fans. The comedy in these videos is pure mid-2000s, and it's fun to look back at what people found funny back then. The Boy Who Turned Into a Gas Pump Book. This entry is referring to a book that was a bit of a mystery online. A lot of people remember a very strange book from the early 90s about a boy who turned into a gas pump. It was debated whether or not it was actually real by people online who had never read it. However, it turns out that the book is indeed real. A YouTuber by the name of Wang made a video talking about the mystery. Eventually, the book was found, and despite being very rare, scans of the book were uploaded online. And it turns out the name of the book was Super Geels. Did anyone watching this video read this book growing up? Zone TV. Zone TV is a series of videos made by the infamous NSFW cartoon artist Zone. He created a character by the name of Zontan, a female demon character who is essentially the mascot of his whole brand. ZTV was a non-pornographic news show parody featuring a bunch of other popular animators of its time. It's genuinely pretty funny. I personally don't like Zone, but I do think that these ZTV videos are pretty entertaining. They still sometimes come out with Zone TV videos, but the uploads are very sporadic. Super Mario 64 Big Star Secret. This entry is referring to a Lost Screamer video that claimed to show how to unlock Luigi in Super Mario 64. The video featured Mario with blue clothes and text showing how to allegedly unlock Luigi, this text being very Windows Movie Maker. After doing some different things to unlock Luigi, the Kayfy zombie jump scare plays. This video is classified as partially found since there is kinda some surviving footage of it. There is a video of a little boy watching it and being scared by it, but the video in this is almost impossible to make out. Another thing that still exists from the video is the thumbnail. Aside from that, the video is lost, but there are some pretty convincing remakes on YouTube, which is probably what you've been looking at. I remember watching the video back in the day, and obviously being very freaked out by the jump scare, but what made the video more creepy was the atmosphere, the weird blue Mario, and the sound in the background. I hope someday this video is found. The kitty cat dance.
Cat, I'm a kitty cat, and I dance, 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 and I dance, dance, dance. Cat, I'm a kitty cat, and I dance, 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 and I dance, dance, dance.
Kitty Cat Dance is a classic viral video created by Steve Ibs in 2004. The song in the video is really catchy, and people around the world adore it. Unfortunately, the video was re-uploaded many times uncredited, and it got so popular to the point where Hot Topic was selling shirts with Steve Cats on it without giving him any credit or profit, which is pretty unfortunate. But Steve later sold his original video as an NFT as a way of finally getting credit and money for his creation. The Kitty Cat Dance lives on to this day, and it even has what seems to be kind of a parody of it in Fortnite. Heaven. Here we find the most true and real parts of our childhood nostalgia. Those feelings of pure, real bliss that we only felt in the past. Are you ready to go back? Your friends from elementary school. Remember your friends from your early school days? The people that you'd spend endless hours playing with. The people who you felt like you'd know for the rest of your life. Remember your connection with them? All of your sweet childhood memories. Are you still in contact with any of them? How much do you really remember from those days? Have you picked up a toy from way back then and just become awash with pure nostalgia? If you haven't, I encourage you to look back. Our friends from our early days shaped who we became today. Without them, our childhoods wouldn't be as wonderful. Random, kind strangers. Remember those random people who showed you completely unexpected kindness and compassion? Remember them for their small good deeds that made our days just a small bit better. I wish every kind stranger I came across in my childhood a good life and happiness. I strongly believe that they deserve it. Often the kindest people are those who have been deeply hurt in the past. So I wish every single person out there who extends kindness to others a wonderful life. And I pray that life reflects to them the kindness that they give to others. Kids you met at the park. Remember making that best friend that you would see once and then never again? Perhaps you both rode the tire swing together, or played Beyblade in one of those big red plastic arenas. You'd spend hours with your new friend, playing and having the most fun in the world, until it was time to leave. You both prayed that you'd see each other at the park another time. But that time never came. You both live on in each other's memories, forever just being a distant, fond memory. To all the kids I met at the park, I hope you're doing well. I love you all. Lost media. You're probably familiar with lost media. It's pretty self-explanatory. I know personally that there's so much media online that I consumed as a kid that is lost forever, especially with Flash Player being killed off. Many of us remember things that came from years past that we just cannot find despite how hard we try. Even something that I spoke about early in this Iceberg that I loved, being the Zula World game, is mostly lost. I adored this game, but there's very little footage of it remaining. What kind of things do you remember? Your dreams. Childhood dreams are unlike any others. The pure sense of whimsy and fun seemingly can't be recreated in adulthood. I know that as a kid, I had some dreams that I can still remember to this day. Some of them terrifying, while others incredibly magical. I recall being able to fly, being able to travel to my favorite fictional worlds and meet all my favorite characters. I remember dreaming about the most amazing video games and the most amazing cartoon episodes. I remember one episode of Max and Ruby featuring my favorite alien from Mars 2112, Captain Orion. If we're lucky, sometimes we can have a dream that kind of recaptures that pure magic from our pasts. It may be rare, but it is fantastic and we savor the time that we do have. Do you remember any of your favorite childhood dreams? Fake nostalgia. Our memories from childhood aren't the most reliable storytellers. A lot of people imagine or misremember things that happened in their youth that they end up believing to be real. I'm sure this has happened to me and many others. Fake nostalgia can be best described by the word anemoia. Nostalgia for a time that you've never known. This leads people to feel nostalgia for events and places that they've never experienced in their lives. Yet the feeling is just as real as any actual childhood memory. Some people feel anemoic when listening to a song that they've heard for the first time, visiting a new location, and especially observing images of places that feel oddly familiar yet disturbing. This leads me to the next entry. Liminal space. Have you ever seen something that makes you feel at home yet creeped out at the same time? You might have been looking at or walking around a liminal space. These images and spaces instill such a specific feeling of nostalgic dread that results in the most wonderful yet disturbing sensation. Remember the smell of this place? What about this one? Remember that plasticky stillness, the smell of the summer air while spending the day playing flash games on your mom's computer? Remember that bedroom that your mom's friend's kid had? Despite only visiting once or twice, the memory of those rooms stay in the back of your head. Remember waiting for your checkup at the doctor's office with that looming anxiety of possibly getting a shot? Remember playing with little wooden marble toys and looking around at all the other kids near you? Some of these liminal spaces aren't of any sort of place that we could have actually visited in the past. Many of these liminal space pictures feel like something straight out of a dream. Think about a movie theater in the dead of night after watching a long movie. There's something almost magical about walking around this massive empty theater. The smell of popcorn and carpet still remains. The sight of empty arcades, fun houses, theme parks, pools, waiting rooms brings back so many memories of places that we've never been to. Liminality represents places of transition. These places weren't the destination, but instead, stops along the way. Another big thing about liminal spaces is the feeling that you get when actually exploring them in modern times. Feeling of walking around an empty airport that hasn't been redesigned since the 90s. The feeling of staying in a house from the 80s. And of course, the feeling of being in your grandparents' house. Which is something I'm kind of fascinated in. There's an incredibly bittersweet feeling being in your grandparents' house after one has passed away, or are deteriorating from Alzheimer's. This house that used to be a place of joy as a kid, without you or your cousins, now feels like an eerily empty and quiet zone. The liminal space is something that I have a very close attachment to, and is a feeling that really affects me. If you want to hear more about it, I've got an entire video covering it with my fellow YouTuber Shooky. Old home movies. Gen Z grew up in the perfect time to have a ton of home movies taken to them before the rise of smartphones, making everything centralized and compact. Many of us still have those old digital point-and-shoot cameras just sitting in a drawer somewhere, filled with tons of incredibly nostalgic home movies taken by our parents, of us doing anything, whether it was just playing with toys, going to fun places, and especially celebrating our birthdays over the years. It can be incredibly beautiful yet saddening to experience and relive these early childhood memories that only really exist in our minds, and the memories of those who experience them. I have so many home movies that only exist on an old Mac Mini from 2006. I don't have the proper wires or adapters to get it running, so that little computer just lives as a genuine time capsule of the 2000s. I want to one day get that computer up and running so I can relive my childhood memories one more time. Your old pets. Growing up, our pets were often our best friends. And many of us have hundreds of unforgettable memories with our pets, who unfortunately have most likely passed away since. The joy that these animals brought us, and I'm sure that we brought to them, is something that we should never forget. My favorite pet growing up was a blood parrotfish named Dorothy, inspired by Elmo's fish. I loved Dorothy with all of my heart, and I imagined up so many stories and adventures of me and Dorothy. Whenever I got a new toy that I was excited about, I would push it up against the tank and show her. Whenever I wanted to just talk about whatever was on my mind, I would talk to Dorothy. My mom and I even made books chronicling the stories of Ray and Dorothy. Dorothy lived for years. Eventually, after buying 2 pet crabs, she tried to eat them, and became aggressive to the other fish in her older age. In an attempt to save the crabs, we scooped Dorothy up and gave her to the pet store for them to sell. I wonder if she's still alive, honestly. And I wonder if she's okay. Another one of my childhood pets was a parakeet named Rocky. He was a beautiful blue little bird and was incredibly intelligent. He didn't like being held, but he loved playing with us. Rocky and I would roll a ball back and forth to each other for hours. Rocky had a good life, but was a very picky bird and only ate seeds. This led him to be unhealthy later in life, and unfortunately he passed away in 2018, leaving me and my brother distraught. I want you to remember your childhood pets, say their names in the comments, and share your stories, because the joy that they brought us should never be forgotten. So, that fully puts an end to the Gen Z Nostalgia Iceberg. If you've been watching since part 1 all the way back in 2021, I just want to give you a huge thank you for sticking with this series despite how long it took to finally finish it. I also want to thank Book of Vows for helping out with this series. His collaboration is much appreciated. This was a wonderful video series to work on, and I'm so glad that I made it. Thank you to the best YTPer for making this wonderful Iceberg, and helping us all remember our past. This may be the end of the Iceberg era of this channel. I've moved on from the format to make informative video essays. Now, I'm not saying I'll never do an Iceberg video again, but as far as my plans go for content, this is it. And I think it's the perfect bookend to that era. I started by showing you your disturbing past memories from a long time ago, and I end by showing you your favorite warm fuzzy memories that you cherish and adore. Over the past 2 years, you've grown to know and love my favorite restaurant mascot, as a representation of myself. I would have never thought, all the way back in March of 2021 when I started working on this channel, that 2 years later there would be a full merchandise shop with the character and plushies on the way. None of this would happen without you. It's poetic almost. I've loved making these videos for you all over the years, and the support that you all give me is nothing short of amazing. So, I've been Raymundo 2112, you've been a great audience, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you, and good night.